Hello guys, it's WezTZK and today I want to ask you a question. How many times have you used the welder in Killing Floor 2? Once, twice, maybe a couple of times? And now I want you to remember, how many times have you used the welder in Killing Floor 1? It's most likely going to be a lot more, and I actually realised this when playing Killing Floor 1 last night. It suddenly hit me that I don't actually use the welder as much as Killing Floor 2. But why is that? Well, one main reason for that is because Killing Floor 1 and 2 have a different levelling up system. In Killing Floor 1 you are required to use the welder to level up your support. Basically you have to weld a bunch of doors along with get support damage. I really like this system. I find it a lot better than Killing Floor 2's system because it encourages the player to use the welder more and strategize. Whereas Killing Floor 2's leveling up system, the welder is optional. It is still there on the actual perk screen, however it is an optional objective. You don't need it to level up. You can still level up to support in Killing Floor 2 using the welder. It does actually give you 8 XP each, but isn't really required. And because Killing Floor 1's engine requires you to use the welder, people will have to use it a lot more. Another reason why I feel like the welder isn't used as much is because of the boss fight. There is a big difference between Killing Floor 1 and Killing Floor 2's Patriarch. The Killing Floor 1 Patriarch hits a lot harder. It can basically kill you in 2 hits, which is why I like to use the welder, so I know where the Patriarch is, because basically if you weld the doors, he'll actually try and blow up the doors to get through it. So it is good for picking out exactly where he is, and you want to kill him as fast as possible because he can kill you in 2 hits on the harder difficulties. Whereas in Killing Floor 2 he is a bit stronger. He does take a lot more bullets, and he does have 4 phases which he can easily go into, unlike Killing Floor 1. However, he doesn't do that much damage to you, so he's not really that big of a threat. To be honest, there's no risk there. And he is a bit of a pushover on Killing Floor 2 as well. You can basically kill him before he heals, so it's a bit of a pushover. So with Killing Floor 2 you don't really need to sit in a corner with the Patriarch and wait for him to come to you. You basically just run to him, and because Killing Floor 2 allows you to run faster, you can basically just outrun him, go around corners quickly if he does try to use the minigun. So already this does make the welder a bit redundant because you don't really need to camp in a corner. And also another thing as well, there is other bosses in Killing Floor 2 like the Abomination, which is a boss which you will need to stand out in the open and run around. He's not really a boss which you would camp in a corner, and this makes the welder quite useless in this situation, because if you sit in a room with all 3 doors welded and you come to one of them, you're kind of screwed, because then you have to unweld the other door and get out, because the Abomination is a big boss and you can't just go through the door that he's broken into, because if you're stuck in a tiny room you will not be able to go around him. And like I mentioned before, the bosses are a lot tankier. They're not like the Killing Floor 1 Patriarch where they will die quite quickly. You will need to use a lot of ammo, so using Killing Floor 1 tactics like the welder will just not be very helpful. Not to mention the Abomination also has the little Abomination spawns which can do a lot of damage, and he can bite you as well, so close combat is just not very good. However, in Killing Floor 2 there is some uses with the welder. You can use it to block access to Zeds, which means you can funnel them in a lot easier. It makes for securing areas a lot easier because you can basically block access to one part of the map. Basically means you won't get overrun, and securing the area makes it a lot easier to deal with. And again, it can also be used to level up your support in Killing Floor 2, although it's not optional. It only gives you about 8 XP each, but it is something. And if you compare the welder with the medic syringe is a lot more needed. It's basically needed to stay alive in solo Hell on Earth or solo suicidal. The Zeds will do a lot more damage to you, so the medic syringe is definitely needed. There is some people who do like no damage challenges, but they barely make it out, so it is needed like a lot. The medic also needs it to heal teammates along with the healing darts. It's also good for any perk because any perk can heal anybody. Whereas if you compare this to the welder, it's just not very much uses you can get out of it, and it's just not really needed. And I think this is all down to how the game actually works. Both Killing Floor 1 and 2 not only have a separate game engine, but the Zeds and AI work completely differently. Patriarch is weaker, but hits harder. Like I said before, he can kill you in 2 hits, so it is good to know exactly where he is, which again I like to weld doors so I know where he is. Whereas Killing Floor 2, the Patriarch is stronger, he's a lot more tankier, but doesn't do that much damage to you, and you can outrun him easily with the Killing Floor 2 perks. Another good comparison you can make is the knife in Killing Floor 1. In Killing Floor 1, the player moves a lot slower, so you need the knife to move faster, whereas in Killing Floor 2, perks like Gunslinger, Berserker, Medic, they run just as fast, so the knife isn't really needed. It's been made a bit redundant in Killing Floor 2, although it can be used for parrying, and again I feel like it's the same situation with the Welder, because unfortunately it has been made redundant. For example, in Killing Floor 1, again the leveling up system required you to level up support with welding doors and doing damage, whereas in Killing Floor 2 it was optional. And like I mentioned before with the bosses, they aren't as weak as the Killing Floor 1 bosses or do as much damage. The bosses in Killing Floor 2 are a lot more of a pushover, which means you can easily outrun them, easily kill them, so welding doors camping isn't really needed. However, like I mentioned before, it does have some uses like leveling up the support, although I would only use it on support early on to level up. If you're level 10 or under on support and you need some extra XP, like I said before, you can just weld the door. Gets you about 8 XP, so I suppose that's a good way to level up. And like I said before, it's also good for area security missions, but anything outside of that, it's just useless really. And again, this is why I like Killing Floor 1's leveling up system, because it encourages the player to use their equipment a lot more. It encourages them to strategize. I bet most people who play Killing Floor 2 never even knew the Welder existed, just because it's not required. And that's what I like about Killing Floor 1, because it makes you aware of all your equipment. It's cleverly designed so you have to use your equipment, if you get what I mean. Whereas in Killing Floor 2 it's optional, so you don't need it. But what do you think? Do you think the Welder has been made redundant in Killing Floor 2, or does it still have some uses? Do let me know down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more Killing Floor 2 videos. I also do Killing Floor 1 videos. Join the Discord if you're new, and I'll see you in the next video.